Hi, everyone. I'm Karen MacNeil, author of the Wine Bible, and this is Somms Unfiltered, Off the Floor and On the Record, being brought to you by, Somm Journal and myself. So today we have the distinct pleasure of talking with Tonya Pitts, wine director of San Francisco's One Market restaurant. Tonya has had quite an amazing 30-year career in the wine business, often working with women-owned restaurants and with women chefs. Tonya's wine list at One Market has won numerous awards. She herself is a member of Les Dames d'Escoffier International and has been working with Batonnage, a support group to bring more women, into the wine business, and with Wine Unify, an initiative to help promote diversity in the wine industry. Tonya, welcome. So glad that you're here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you today, Karen. It's really amazing.
Thank you. I have to start out by saying, boy, 30 years on the floor as a sommelier. How do you keep your passion, your enthusiasm alive? That's a long time to be on the floor.
For me, it's always the spark in someone's eye and the aha moment when you've spoken to them about a wine and they get it and it resonates with them and you're on the same page. But I also think that it's because of my love for wine and the industry as well. It wasn't necessarily something that I thought was for me or that I would be doing. And I don't want to say that I fought against it for a long time, but I wasn't picking up all the clues that was being presented to me that this is what I should be doing. The enthusiasm and the passion and the curiosity that I felt and that was fed by the industry and by this love of wine, I just knew that I really liked it a lot and was really enthused and intrigued by food and wine pairings and the history and where wine comes from and all of that. But I didn't see it as something for myself. I started out as a pre-law major in St. Louis at St. Louis University and decided to switch gears. And instead of being a minor in art, have art be my major. And I moved to San Francisco, but I've been working in restaurants since I was 18. And that's how this all blossomed and started.
When did you realize that you had a palate for wine, that you were actually really good at this?
When I was 21, and I have to go back for a minute, I was working at 18 in a French restaurant with a female chef who had come back home to St. Louis to open her own restaurant, and her friends from throughout her career came to help her with that project. And there was family meal at the end of the night, and there was wine on the table. While I could not partake, but I could be there at the table, have the food, smell the wine, and I got the courage up to start asking questions and talking about what I was smelling in the glass. And even for me today, I can smell for 10, 15 minutes and just write down notes and everything that I've gotten. So that's my process now, and then taste. But to think that that's where I would be today and have the career that I've had, no.
Yeah. Well, I know that you did study art and that you still paint. Do you think of wine as art?
Absolutely. I tell people now, and it's, I said this many years ago, and it's inside of the wine list. I used to paint all the time, and now I use food and wine as my canvas and my paints, and I'm creating this experience for people, which could be seen as a painting when we're all done with all of it. Yeah. It's very interesting that way. The process when Chef Mark and I get together and we do taste and talk, and especially when we're putting together a special menu, we have those pieces and components of a dish and we have the wines in front of us. And it is very much like creating a piece of art or creating a painting, if you would.
You know, that leads me to my next question. There's often a formality, a sort of stiffness, a click your heels together kind of formality that some sommeliers have, but you have a very gentle demeanor. I'm wondering if you consciously, when you're on the floor with guests, even emphasize that gentility even more to just put people at ease around a topic that can sometimes be intimidating.
I think that long ago, I realized as being on the floor and starting out as a host and working my way through and being a server, that you have to treat each person individually as themselves. You can assess, and I don't want to use the word size people up, but you can assess people's energy, body language, all of that comes into play. And you really have to use those skills when you are talking to people. And you can get more with honey than vinegar. And so, and that's the way that you proceed. And you're not talking down to people, you're not being presumptuous. There's none of that. You know, we are all here to enjoy ourselves, to have a great meal and a fantastic bottle of wine and to create memories. That's what this is all about.
Well, speaking of that idea of memories, Tonya, you have a pretty big list at One Market. I think about 600 different wines. Do you have a technique for remembering wines yourself, or do you just sort of automatically remember them after all these years?
It used to be more than 600, Karen. It was about 900, pushing 1,000. And in the last 4 years or so, I've whittled it down because it had gotten so large.
Mm.
I have always had the sense of recall. And when I think of a wine or I smell a wine or if I see a label or think of a place, I can recall having that wine and tasting that wine. And that may also be because I tend to go through my notes. Yes, I have lots of paper.
Me too.
I like paper. And I can recall that. And so not just that list, but the wines that I've tasted in my lifetime. Quick story. I was at a tasting for Mouton Rothschilds, and one of the first aha moments was having a bottle together with some people of a 1976. I had the opportunity to have that wine in a lineup, and I closed my eyes, and it was as though I was transported to that particular time and place. And I smelled that wine, and I started to cry. And that was my moment. That was remembering having had that wine at that time. And it was just as beautiful as I remembered it so long ago.
Mm.
But I love aged wines, but that's just it. It's history in a bottle, and it takes you to a particular time and place, even if you weren't necessarily at that particular time and place at that moment when it was bottled.
So true, and so much why we love wine. That is absolutely beautifully said. Well, let's taste a wine. Here's a wine. I wanted to, when I think of you, as I said, I think of someone who is so generous and thoughtful and gentle. And I thought it would be fun to taste a Malbec. So this is Antigal's wine called UNO, or number one, with a
Yeah.
big number one on the label.
Mhm.
And, you know, I want to hear what you think about Malbec, but when I know I'm about to taste a Malbec, I immediately am anticipating just a texture that can be heavenly. I'm thinking texture first. What about you?
I'm thinking texture first, but I'll tell you the hues and the colors and the smells are very, very varied. Um, when I think of Malbec, I think of the paint color alizarin crimson is what I think of. And the hues of Malbec are varied hues of that particular paint color. And then I go into smell and texture. And I always think of these rich, robust fruits of mulberry, blackberry, raspberry, even wild strawberries can be found in Malbec, and hints of chocolate and flint. And there's this rocky, stony quality that is there. And sometimes you can smell clay as well. It's really very varied. And they're in different intensities as well. All of those that I've mentioned. This wine in the glass right now, to me, it makes me want to feel as though I have this warm blanket that's just been wrapped around me, but it's really plush and
Mm,
lush, but just really lovely, really beautiful. No sharp edges,
no.
no sharp edges. Oh,
I feel
yeah.
sometimes with Malbec that you can, as you say, you can crawl into it, you can
Mm,
wrap it around you. It has just been amazing what Argentina
mm,
has done with this grape, and to think that so long ago it was not really doing very well in France, and
mm-mm.
yet it really found its emotional home, its terroir in Argentina. Just such a pretty wine.
This is mouthwatering.
It does have good acidity as well, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
want another sip, and I would love to have something with this as well, but I'm
What
quite
would you
happy to
have with
have
it?
it on its own in sunshine. So I'm thinking right now, and you can't always pair vegetables with red wine all the time. I would like some roasted baby beets, some chugas, some pink, some yellow, um, a little bit of arugula with that,
Ooh,
some
yeah.
toasted pecans with that that have been glazed ever so slightly, a little bit of cayenne and pink peppercorn there, very simple vinaigrette. And I could either have a piece of chicken with that, I could have hanger steak with that.
Mm,
I could also have a really lovely piece of flounder with that, and it would all still work very well because this wine is not so concentrated and heavy. It's plush, but it's got acidity and minerality and fruit, and it makes me want to eat. But I could have a lighter style meal, or I could have something heavier with
yeah.
this as well if I would like.
Are you yourself a good cook?
I can. And I think it's because I've been around chefs all of my career and watching them in the kitchen. I do have cookbooks at home. I do cook. I used to cook more than I do now,
Yeah.
but I enjoy it very much. I find it to be therapeutic. I actually started out baking and making cakes and things like that for my family when I was a little girl. I loved to do that, even if it was starting out with an easy bake oven and graduating.
That's going way back now.
Yeah,
That's way
yeah,
back.
making
Um,
cakes and cupcakes from scratch. You know, yeah.
Tonya, while we continue to enjoy this Uno, tell us something about yourself that would surprise most people to know.
Oh boy. Well, I'm a chameleon. There's so much um, that's there. Um, Surprise people. I'm an introvert. I'm
That is
not
a
an extrovert.
surprise.
I am an introvert, and but I think I'm one of those introverts that does very well being an extrovert as well, and I can just kind of weave my way in and out of things as I like. But I'm very, very happy to be quiet. And I'm one of those, I can go out to dinner on my own. I can go out to lunch on my own. I can be by myself, and that's okay. You
Mm,
know, I don't have to be around people all the time. But yes, I really am. I'm an introvert.
that's
Yeah.
hard to believe. That would surprise all of us. Well, Tonya Pitts, thank you so much for talking with us today on Somms Unfiltered. I want to thank you and thank the producer Antigal for letting us taste their wine as well. And if you would like to read the interview with Tonya, I invite you to go to sommjournal.com or to get a subscription to the magazine where you can read the full interview with her. Tonya, thank you so much for talking with me today.